The servant who boiled water in Third Mistress's courtyard had died. Her death was very strange. Her lower body bled continuously, and her entire body reeked of a strong, foul odor. Third Mistress, feeling unlucky, ordered me to dispose of her body in the mountains for wild dogs. I couldn't bear it, so I secretly found a plot of land and buried her. But as I filled the grave, something peculiar happened. Her eyes, which had remained wide open after death, suddenly streamed with 2 lines of fresh red blood. I was so terrified, my entire body went cold. That night, after returning, I developed a fever and had nightmares all night. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of water bubbling in the water boiling room. My heart pounded with fear. The servant who boiled water was dead. So who was boiling the water? In Third Mistress's courtyard, there were 3 servants, Spring, myself, and Autumn. Autumn, the youngest, was responsible for boiling water. Third Mistress loved the water she prepared, always requesting a fresh tub every night after Master Lin visited. That night, Master Lin came to our courtyard again. In the pitch-black darkness, a lantern adorned with the character for joy cast a faint red glow. Wherever Master Lin wished to go, a lantern would be lit there. That was the rule of the Lin household. Third Mistress smiled charmingly, hooking her arm with Master Lin's as they entered her room. I bowed low, kneeling on the ground, only catching a glimpse of Master Lin's brilliant yellow robe as it swept past. Third Mistress had a rule. One must perform a great kowtow when meeting Master Lin, never raising one's head or looking directly. Soon, sounds that would make one blush echoed from the room. But the sounds came quickly and went quickly. In less than a tea time, a short while, water was requested from the room. Autumn, who was waiting outside, immediately carried a tub of water, and I helped her pull back the curtain for her to enter. She smiled at me, dimples faintly visible in the dim light. Another tea time passed, and Master Lin emerged from the room. I knelt on the ground, seeing Master Lin off. The damp, cold, moss-covered blue stone felt like a small snake, its tongue flicking from my knees into my very bones. I had a vague premonition of ill omen. No sooner had Master Lin departed than a heavy rain began to fall. Purple lightning flashed between the cloud layers and thunder roared. The damp rain seeped into my outer garment, and a gust of wind swept through, making my heart uneasy. I wondered why the rain was so heavy tonight, and why Autumn still hadn't come out. Just then, Third Mistress appeared. A blinding flash of lightning illuminated half the sky, also revealing Third Mistress's terrifying figure. Her once graceful face was now horribly distorted, her entire body stained with fresh blood, like a Rakshasa demon crawling up from hell. I gasped, nearly screaming, but before I could open my mouth, Third Mistress clamped it shut. The pungent smell of blood rushed into my nostrils. Third Mistress gestured for me to be silent, her eyes signaling me to enter the room. My heart was full of fear and doubt, but I dared not disobey, so I followed her inside. As soon as I entered, I took a sharp breath, my eyes wide open. my already trembling body shaking even more violently. I witnessed the most horrific sight of my life. Autumn, who had just smiled and greeted me, now lay motionless on the cold ground, her clothes torn, revealing her slender, newly developed figure. Beneath her was a pool of fresh blood, seeping into the floorboards. Even stranger, the room was filled with a putrid stench, so overwhelmingly strong that it drowned out the smell of blood, making one nauseous. And that foul odor emanated from Autumn's very corpse. Third Mistress said that Autumn had boiled the water too hot today, displeasing Master Lin, and thus had been executed. She said Autumn's death here was too unlucky, and ordered me to throw her body out back in the mountains for wild dogs to eat. The rain poured down, and the mountain path was muddy. I donned a rain cloak, carried Autumn's body on my back, and trudged through the rain with difficult steps. I didn't understand. Autumn was skilled at boiling water, always pleasing Third Mistress. How could she have offended Master Lin today? Moreover, her death was tragic and bizarre, and her body emitted a strange foul odor, not like someone who had just died, but like a corpse that had been rotting for a long time. Despite my lingering doubts, I couldn't bear to leave Autumn's body exposed in the wilderness, so I dug a pit, hoping she could rest in peace. But as I filled the grave, something peculiar happened. Autumn's bloodshot eyes suddenly flew open, unable to close. Even more frightening, it was as if she had suddenly come back to life, with 2 streams of bloody tears flowing from her eyes. Her pale grey face, with those vivid red tears, looked nothing short of a female demon. A clap of thunder startled me. I was so scared my whole body went numb with cold. I quickly covered the grave, threw away the shovel, and then ran down the mountain. Perhaps due to fright and getting soaked in the rain. That night, I developed a fever. I lay in bed, my head spinning, and when I closed my eyes, I saw Autumn transformed into a malevolent ghost. I was both uncomfortable and terrified, unable to sleep all night, only drifting off at dawn. The next morning, it was bright. I thought to myself, this isn't good. If Third Mistress wakes up and doesn't see me serving her, I'll surely be in trouble. Though my head ached like it was being hammered, and I felt exhausted, I forced myself to get up. As I hurried towards Third Mistress's room, I suddenly heard the gurgling sound of boiling water from the water boiling room. Autumn was dead, so who was boiling the water? My heart went cold, pounding furiously. I swallowed, trying to suppress my fear as I looked towards the water boiling room. The door was ajar, and through the gap I saw a figure in a yellow robe, half seated on a wooden chair, adding firewood to the stove. Even though I only saw her back, I couldn't mistake that robe. It was the same one Autumn had worn yesterday. Overwhelmed by terror, I screamed. As soon as the sound escaped me, the figure turned around. I expected to see a sinister female ghost, but the face was Spring's. It was then that I suddenly remembered that Spring, and I also owned identical robes. I breathed a sigh of relief. My anxieties dispelled. I must have been overthinking. There were no ghosts in this world, and even if there were, they wouldn't appear in broad daylight. Summer, you were sick last night. Why don't you rest a little longer? Spring asked. I tried to calm myself, wanting to ask more about last night. Last night, Spring had told me that Autumn's death wasn't due to displeasing Master Lin with the water. Autumn was inherently innocent. It's no li kia. How could such a great misfortune befall her? Thinking of Autumn's death, a terrifying thought suddenly struck me. Could it be that Master Lin had shamed her, leading to her death? As soon as the words left my lips, Spring frantically covered my mouth. Be careful what you say. Remembering the rules of the Lin household, I looked around in fear, filled with regret for speaking ill of Master Lin on impulse. Third Mistress killed her. Spring's voice was resolute. Third Mistress was temperamental, often beating and scolding servants, but she had always treated Autumn exceptionally well. I had found this very perplexing until one night I accidentally overheard her delirious words. It turned out that before marrying Master Lin, Third Mistress had a child, but unfortunately miscarried and could never conceive again. The untimely death of her baby had always haunted her, and coincidentally, Autumn was the same age as that child, which made Third Mistress softer towards her. How could such a person harm Autumn? Last night, when Autumn entered the room to attend to Master Lin, he looked at her again. Spring continued. I suddenly understood. Third Mistress hadn't always been Third Mistress. Originally, she was just the lowest-ranking sweeping maid in Second Mistress's courtyard. That night Master Lin, drunk and in a hurry, went to Second Mistress's room, but was rejected as usual. Enraged, Master Lin forced himself upon Third Mistress right then and there. Thus, Third Mistress became Third Mistress, a maid elevated to a concubine. Naturally, what she feared most was Master Lin, setting his eyes on other maids. And in this mansion, a maid's life was worth nothing, let alone Autumn, who was merely the lowliest water-boiling maid. From Third Mistress's room, a sharp voice screeched, "Summer, where are you? The sun is high, and you're still not here to attend to me." Her voice was shrill, like a broken saw blade, straining my fragile nerve. My head felt numb, and the spots where she had hit me throbbed with a dull ache. I put aside my thoughts, hurrying away from the water-boiling room, round the pagoda tree in the courtyard, and quickly entered her room. Beyond the pearl curtain, Third Mistress was leisurely reclining before a bronze mirror. A young maid was combing a lock of her hair. Third Mistress's courtyard only had 3 maids. Autumn, who was dead, leaving only Spring and me. But Spring was in the water-boiling room. So who was this maid? Despite my internal doubts, I still knelt down, performing the ritual with respect. Being late was already a transgression. Without proper reverence, a beating would be unavoidable. Strangely, Third Mistress didn't make things difficult, only scolding me a few times before telling me to stand. I stood outside the room, trembling, not daring to breathe heavily, unsure of what scheme she was planning this time. "Sister Summer, I'm still clumsy. Could you come comb Madam's hair?" The maid beside Third Mistress broke the silence. At this voice, I snapped my head up, my eyes wide with disbelief. It was broad daylight, yet a chill permeated to my very bones, making my back prickle. The charming smile before me blended with the face that couldn't close its eyes in the buried pit. A gust of wind blew, and goosebumps covered my entire body. Seeing my dazed state, she took my hand and pulled me towards Third Mistress. Her hand was warm and soft, her fingertips slightly calloused from handling much firewood, like a normal person. But I was so scared my hair stood on end. I was certain she wasn't human, because a strong, putrid stench emanated from her, rushing straight to my head, exactly like the smell from last night. It was a smell like a bloated corpse washed ashore by waves. Outwardly normal, but upon touch, the decaying flesh beneath would be revealed. Once smelled, never forgotten. Autumn led me to Third Mistress, and then left the room. Seeing my pale face, Third Mistress didn't make me work, only told me to rest. Autumn was clearly dead, so why had she returned? And then, her body reeked so strongly of decay. How could Third Mistress not smell it? My mind was filled with too many doubts, but due to fear, I had lost all reason, only managing to say in a trembling voice, "Madam, Autumn's vengeful spirit has returned to claim our lives." My voice couldn't hide my terror. Third Mistress narrowed her eyes, her alluring gaze fixed on me with utter confusion. Her answer made my heart turn cold. She said, Autumn was perfectly fine, and scolded me for daring to curse her to death. She also said there was no foul smell on Autumn. Third Mistress vehemently asserted that I was lazy and had fabricated the story, then scolded me fiercely and dismissed me. What exactly was happening? Why did Third Mistress seem to have forgotten everything from last night? I was completely disoriented and rushed to find Spring. But her answer was exactly like Third Mistress's. She said Autumn had returned to her room after attending to a bath last night, and as for me, she didn't know why I had run out in the middle of the night. When I returned, I was completely soaked. No, Autumn is clearly dead. I saw her body with my own eyes. Spring touched my forehead, asking if I was hallucinating due to a high fever. I didn't believe her and frantically searched for the cloth I had used to wrap Autumn's body last night. I remembered that cloth was stained with blood. Spring looked at me as if I were insane, then pulled out a pristine white cloth. The cloth was clean, without a single bloodstain, not even a speck of dust. No, this can't be. Last night I clearly used this cloth to wrap the body. When I came home, I tucked it under the table and hadn't even had time to wash it yet. No, everything is wrong. You are all lying to me. I screamed wildly, wanting to prove Autumn was dead. But Third Mistress's words, Spring's words, the clean cloth, everything suggested I was hallucinating. My mind was a tangled mess, unable to unravel. I began to doubt myself. Had I mistaken a nightmare for reality? But how could I explain the foul stench on Autumn's body? That's right, Autumn's body. A ray of light flashed in my mind. I remembered burying Autumn in the rain last night. If I could just find her body on the mountain, it would prove I wasn't wrong. Thinking this, I didn't stop to explain anything, rushing out and accidentally bumping into Autumn, who had just entered. Startled, I fearfully swung my arm, not letting her help me. Who knew if this thing in front of me was Autumn, a ghost, or some monster? I staggered out the door, heading towards the back mountain. Oh, The wind whistled in my ears, my throat raw from hyperventilating. Soon, a pungent, bloody smell permeated everywhere. I forced myself to endure the discomfort in my body and my dizzy head, rushing towards the back mountain. If I could just find Autumn's body, I would prove myself right. But my heart was constantly filled with apprehension. What if Autumn's body wasn't on the mountain? The best case scenario was that everything last night was just a nightmare due to a high fever. I had confused dream and reality, and that strange foul odor was perhaps a hallucination caused by my discomfort. But there was another terrifying possibility. The smell on Autumn's body was incredibly strong. I was certain it was the smell of a decomposing corpse, many days old. If her body wasn't on the back mountain, had she perhaps come back to life from the dead? Had Autumn died strangely? Or had her vengeful spirit returned for retribution? But who had killed Autumn? Was it Third Mistress or Master Lin? My mind was a mess. I couldn't immediately figure it out. Running and thinking, I soon approached the spot where I had buried the body last night. I slowed my pace, swallowed nervously, my heart pounding. An area of earth had a different color, darker and wetter. It was indeed where I had buried Autumn last night. Now I was certain my memory wasn't wrong. Last night I had gone up the mountain. Otherwise, this abnormality couldn't be explained. Now I just needed to check if Autumn's body was in the grave. I looked around, picked up the shovel I had discarded in the grass last night, and began to dig. It had rained last night, so the soil was quite soft. After a few digs, the shovel blade hit something soft. It must be Autumn's body. My heart pounded with extreme excitement. As I was engrossed in digging, a figure silently approached from the shadows. I dug 2 more times. The layer of soil on the surface was cleared, revealing a piece of goose yellow cloth. No mistake, these were the clothes Autumn had worn yesterday. I threw the shovel aside, not caring about the dirt, and used my hands to wipe away the mud from the body's face. Finally, her face appeared, her bloodshot eyes still wide open, fresh red blood staining her grayish face. It was indeed Autumn's body. I collapsed onto the ground from exhaustion, my heart beating so fast I could barely breathe, only able to gasp for air. Autumn was clearly dead, her body still here, so why had she returned? Why didn't Third Mistress and Spring remember Autumn dying last night? Why was I the only one who could smell the decay? Sister Summer, what are you doing here? A sweet voice suddenly sounded behind me. My heart sank. Goosebumps covered my entire body, fear overwhelming me. The voice was too familiar. I knew who it was without looking. How long had she been here? Would she kill me? My hands trembled with fear, my mind racing to find a way to react. What now? What should I do? Seeing my dazed state, the person walked around to face me. She seemed interested in the pit, circling it and examining it. I was limp with tension, too weak to stand. How strange. Why did you dig a pit and leave it empty? Her voice was full of doubt. I choked. Didn't she see the body in the pit? Seeing me sitting on the ground, Autumn tried to help me up. Her warm hand touched my shoulder, and I flinched, snapping out of my panic. I didn't understand what was happening, nor did I dare to think too deeply. I pushed Autumn's hand away forcefully and staggered back. Upon returning to the courtyard, I found it deserted. Third Mistress and Spring were nowhere to be seen. At this hour, Third Mistress was probably admiring flowers in the garden. I quickly ran into the servants' quarters, gathering a few changes of clothes and hiding them under my blanket. Everything was too strange. I had to escape. I had to get out of the Lin household immediately. But I was a servant sold into this place. Without Master Lin's permission, I couldn't leave. I could only wait until nightfall to escape. Just as I finished hiding my belongings, Third Mistress returned, shouting for me to attend to her. I gasped for breath, my throat dry and raw with fear, my heart feeling like it would leap out of my chest. I dug my fingers into my palm, trying to remain calm. I bowed my head and entered Third Mistress's room. Luckily, nothing happened until evening. In the dark of night, I kept my eyes wide open, silently waiting for Spring and Autumn to fall into a deep sleep. The stench of decay was still thick, filling my nostrils, seemingly even stronger than last night, to the point that Spring also seemed to carry the smell. The breathing in the room gradually became even. I quietly got up, dressed myself, and slipped away. What was it like to sleep in the same bed as a ghost? I only knew my heart was constantly suspended, not daring to breathe heavily. Once out of the small courtyard, I felt less tense, lucky not to have woken the ghost girl. Late at night, the Lin Mansion was silent, not a soul in sight. I crept through the mansion, following my memory towards the back gate, but the Lin Mansion tonight seemed different from during the day. No matter how long I walked, I couldn't find the back gate. The third time I passed the same corridor, I noticed something unusual. Was the Lin Mansion really that big? I had been walking for almost half an hour from Third Mistress's room. Was the Lin Mansion truly that vast? Just. Tonight, there was no moon, no stars. The sky was pitch black, like ink, as if it was about to fall and swallow the Lin Mansion. A strange feeling swelled within me. It was hard to see in the dark. I must have taken a wrong turn. I tried to reassure myself, but the unease clung to me. Under the cover of night, the Lin Mansion lost all its colors, leaving only an oppressive blackness. I walked faster. So fast, I no longer cared about making noise, practically flying. My vision blurred. In the corner of my eye, vague white walls and black roofs appeared like monsters with gaping mouths, ready to swallow everything. I was startled by my imagination, but upon closer inspection, the scene became even more bizarre. The buildings seemed to come alive, their vertical lines trembling as if submerged in water, stretching endlessly. They grew like bamboo shoots after rain, getting taller and more curved. The Lin Mansion distorted, monstrous and alive. I tilted my head back in horror, watching the black sky shrink. The houses grew, closed in, forming a cage. The scene was too strange. I forgot to think, forgot to run. When I regained my senses, the sky was just a pinpoint of light. Then it vanished. Finally, the Lin Mansion transformed into a cage, trapping me inside. You can't escape. You can't escape. Suddenly, a whisper echoed in the silent space. I flinched, looking around frantically. But there was no one. The voice was very strange, soft, yet it seemed to come from everywhere. Sometimes far, sometimes near. No one can escape the Lin Mansion. The voice became increasingly shrill, from a whisper to a scream, making my eardrums ache. I covered my ears, crouched down, curled into a ball, trembling uncontrollably. But the sound was like a sharp hammer pounding on my head. Amidst the screams, no one can escape the Lin Mansion. My head ached as if it were being drilled, my forehead beaded with sweat, my whole body drenched. What was wrong with the Lin Mansion? What was happening? In intense pain, my consciousness faded, and I finally passed out. I woke up to a bright light on my face. I opened my eyes with difficulty, my head still throbbing. Outside it was clearly morning, and I was back in my familiar servant's room. I bolted upright. Was last night just a nightmare? Had I never left the room? I frowned, unable to comprehend. Why couldn't summer get out last night? Spring's faint, questioning voice came from outside the door. Last night wasn't a dream. My heart tightened. How did Spring know I had tried to escape last night? The voice outside continued. I strained my ears, holding my breath to listen. If I woke her up, Summer would think I came back to life as a vengeful ghost. Then I'd pretend not to know she was dead to scare her away from the Lin Mansion. Everything was going according to plan, so why couldn't Summer leave? Spring knew Autumn was dead. I took a shallow breath, eyes wide, my mind filled with questions. Why was she lying to me? Why did she want me to leave the Lin Mansion? I had seen Autumn die with my own eyes. How could she be alive again? What was wrong with the Lin Mansion last night? The deed of servitude is missing. Another deep voice spoke, and it was Autumn's. I remembered when I first arrived at the Lin Mansion. An old servant once said that if you didn't retrieve your deed of servitude, you'd never escape. Alive, you belonged to the Lin family. Dead, you were a ghost of the Lin family. But how could one get the deed from Master Lin's study? We have to find a way. This is our last chance. If Summer can't escape, you know the consequences. Autumn's voice grew more serious. Spring seemed to tremble outside, her voice shaky. I understand. Hearing this, I grew even more confused. If I couldn't escape, what would happen? Why were Spring and Autumn so frightened? Before I could think more deeply, there was a creak, and the door opened. Startled, I quickly lay down, pulled the blanket up, and closed my eyes, my heart pounding. Before the footsteps came a suffocating stench of decay. I involuntarily inhaled, then quickly held my breath to avoid making a sound. The footsteps gradually drew closer and stopped by my bed. A dangerous aura wafted over my face, and goosebumps rose on my arms under the blanket. I held my breath, my heart seemingly stopped. Fortunately, they did nothing. Only gently wiped the sweat from my forehead, adjusted my blanket, and then closed the door and left. Finally, they were gone. I took a deep breath, my lungs feeling revived. The foul smell was still there, but less oppressive. I sighed, thinking, Even ghosts know politeness, adjusting blankets for others. But the stench seemed stronger, even more so than that night in Third Mistress's room, and Spring also carried the smell. An unpleasant thought arose. Had Spring also died? I suddenly remembered an incident a few days ago. That day, Spring was scolded by Third Mistress and didn't return until morning. The next day, passing by the back garden, I heard cries from the dry well. I approached and found it was Spring. She said she had fallen into the well in the dark. When I pulled her up, I smelled a foul odor. Spring said it was due to the mud at the bottom of the well. Could she have died then too? I shuddered, goosebumps all over. That afternoon, I brought a rope to the dry well. I went down to the bottom and indeed found a body buried in the mud. It was Spring. The bottom of the well was cold, but my heart was even colder. Spring and Autumn were both dead. But if their bodies were still here, why were there other Springs and Autumns appearing? Were they monsters or something else? And what was this awakening they spoke of? Coming back to life from the dead was awakening. But why were their bodies still intact? I couldn't understand, and my heart grew even more fearful. In a flash, the Lin Mansion again felt like a giant cage weighing down on me. Can't escape, can't escape. I shook my head, dispelling the terrifying illusion that was appearing. The Lin Mansion had too many strange things. I had to escape from here at all costs. Escape from all these horrors. But no matter how terrifying the Lin Mansion was at night, during the day, life had to go on as usual. I had tried to sneak out the side gate during the day, but each time I was stopped by the old steward of the Lin Mansion. Without Master Lin's permission, one cannot leave the Lin Mansion. The old steward was very old. The wrinkles on his face like withered tree bark. His eyes dark and gloomy, as if he was about to swallow others whole. Why hadn't I noticed how fake the steward was before? I wondered, then returned to Third Mistress's courtyard. As soon as I entered the courtyard, the familiar stench rushed into my nostrils. Having been with Spring and Autumn for several days, I had almost grown accustomed to this smell. Sometimes I even felt as if I myself emitted that foul odor. I even suspected whether I too had died and unknowingly become a malevolent ghost. Although Spring and Autumn were full of peculiarities, they treated me very well. They helped me with my work, shared the scoldings from Third Mistress, and were even better than the Spring and Autumn in my memory. Third Mistress still tormented her servants. Whenever she was upset, she would gather the three of us for discipline. Being beaten so often bred hatred and resentment. Before, whenever Third Mistress scolded or beat us, Spring, Autumn, and I would huddle together and curse her. People needed an outlet for their anger. Not daring to curse her directly, we could only speak ill of her in secret. But recently, I noticed that Spring and Autumn had changed. They no longer harbored resentment. They would only sigh, saying, "She's also a woman of bitter fate," their eyes carrying a sorrow I couldn't understand. One late night, Spring, thinking I was asleep, whispered to Autumn, "We can't go to Master Lin's place. How can we get the deed of servitude? Should we awaken Third Mistress? No, the more bodies there are, the stronger the power within the Lin Mansion becomes, and the harder it will be to escape. Then What should we do? If this drags on, we'll be assimilated by the Lin Mansion and become the real spring and autumn. Spring's voice was full of worry. Autumn was silent for a long time before speaking. Tomorrow, I'll go steal the deed of servitude. If I fail, I'll awaken Third Mistress. But if you're discovered, you'll die. Dying before being assimilated means you'll never wake up again. Spring's voice grew even more anxious. How many people have died in this Lin Mansion instance? Even you and I have been stuck here for who knows how long. Whether I die or not isn't important. What's important is that this time we must close it permanently. Spring wanted to say something more, but Autumn cut her off. I decided, go to sleep. There was no more sound from that side. I lay still in bed, silently processing the words I had just heard. Awakening indeed meant coming back to life from the dead. But what was assimilation? Were the spring and autumn before me not the real spring and autumn? Thinking carefully, their gestures these past few days were indeed strange, different from the spring and autumn in my memories. What was an instance? Why did they call the Lin Mansion an instance, and why did they want to close it? At this moment, I felt lost in a thick fog. Everything before my eyes was hazy, impossible to see clearly. It seemed that, from that night, everything had unfolded in a way I couldn't comprehend. Lin Mansion, awakening, instance, closing, along with the strange spring and autumn. All of it exceeded my understanding. No matter how much I thought, I couldn't explain it. In the darkness, I let out a silent sigh. The most important thing now was to escape the Lin Mansion. Although spring and autumn's words implied they wanted me to leave, they were full of mystery and strangeness, and I couldn't trust them. The matter of the deed of servitude still had to be handled by myself. The next day, spring and autumn were distracted all day, occasionally glancing towards the study. As dusk fell, Master Lin entered First Mistress's courtyard. Autumn began to act. But just then, Third Mistress suddenly called her back and told her to boil water. Third Mistress's command was too strict. Even though she didn't want to, Autumn had to go to the water boiling room. It was truly heaven sent. While Spring and Autumn whispered in the kitchen, I quietly sneaked out, making my way to Master Lin's study. It was pitch dark. I dared not light a candle, only fumbling in the darkness to find the deed of servitude. I searched every spot 3 times, but found no trace of it. Was the deed of servitude not in Master Lin's room, or did I not search thoroughly enough? As I was about to search again, a commotion erupted in the courtyard. Master Lin, Third Sister's maid, is in your room, trying to steal something. This is bad. It's Sixth Mistress's voice. An alarm bell rang in my head, my heart pounding like a drum. At this moment, there was no time to think about the deed of servitude. I frantically looked around for a place to hide. Hearing that voice, they would surely open the door and come in within seconds. If discovered, I would surely die. But the study was very small. There was almost nowhere to hide. Just as despair set in, a familiar scent wafted into my nostrils. I turned my head and saw Autumn climbing in through the window. She moved very quickly, gesturing for silence and pulling me behind a screen. This spot was useless for hiding. Anyone walking 2 steps in would immediately discover us. I gasped, my entire body stiff with fear, a sense of despair surging. My heart felt like it would leap out of my throat. This time, I was surely dead. But in the very next second, as the door was about to be pushed open, Autumn stepped forward. She opened the door, walked out, and closed it behind her. What was Autumn planning to do? There was a commotion outside for a while. And eventually, Autumn was captured. The noise outside fell silent for a long time before I finally sighed and sat heavily on the ground, panting. My back was cold, drenched in sweat. Only then did I understand Autumn's intention. She planned to take the blame for me. I didn't rest, quickly forcing myself up. Autumn was captured because she saved me. I had to see how she was. Fearing there might still be guards at the main gate, I climbed out the back window and stumbled towards the ancestral hall. In the Lin Mansion, all punishments and interrogations took place in the ancestral hall. The ancestral hall's entrance was already crowded with servants. I panted, trying to control my breathing, waiting to calm down before pretending nonchalance and sneaking forward. Inside the ancestral hall, the lamps were brightly lit. Master Lin, First Mistress, Third Mistress, and Sixth Mistress were all present. Master Lin, this maid dared to enter your study to steal. She must be severely punished. Sixth Mistress raised a cup of tea to Master Lin. Sixth Mistress was plump, with a kind and gentle face. She smirked, triumphantly glancing at Third Mistress. Third Mistress and Sixth Mistress had never gotten along, their rivalry simmering for a long time. This was undoubtedly orchestrated by Sixth Mistress. But how did she know someone from Third Mistress's courtyard would come to the study tonight? Third Mistress clenched her handkerchief, gritting her teeth and glaring. This sort of unclean servant is the most detestable. It would be better if Master Lin gave her 30 lashes and then interrogated her. Sixth Mistress's voice was shrill, but her words were utterly vicious. Autumn was physically weak. 30 lashes would surely kill her. Master Lin didn't object, but he also didn't give an order, as if he was contemplating. Third Mistress took a deep breath, her voice even sweeter than Sixth Mistress's. Master Lin, this Autumn has been searched thoroughly, and indeed nothing was found. Please, Master Lin, consider that it's her first offense, and she hasn't actually stolen anything, and spare her life. Third Mistress even puffed out her chest, intending to lean on Master Lin, but Sixth Mistress blocked her. Third Sister is mistaken. If we hadn't arrived in time, who knows what this maid intended to take? Third Sister pleads so earnestly for her. Could it be that she stole at your instigation? Sixth Mistress, speak carefully. Don't make baseless accusations. Third Mistress retorted angrily. Oh, is Third Sister raising her voice because she has a guilty conscience? Whether it's baseless or not, Third Sister knows in her heart. Sixth Mistress sat down. My maid heard with her own ears today Third Sister instructing Autumn to go to Master Lin's room to steal the deed of servitude. And as for nothing being found on her, it's because I just saw Autumn secretly hand it to Third Sister amidst the chaos. I silently cried out, "This is not good." I had been following Autumn all day, except for when she hadn't yet entered the study. How could she have stolen the deed of servitude? Sixth Mistress's target wasn't Autumn, but Third Mistress. She wanted Third Mistress dead. The deed of servitude was Master Lin's weakness. If Sixth Mistress's false accusation proved true, Third Mistress would surely not survive. You're talking nonsense. Third Mistress could no longer maintain her dignified demeanor. She sprang from her seat, intending to snatch Sixth Mistress's hairpin. Sixth Mistress let out a faint hum, hiding behind Master Lin. Nonsense or not, we'll know if we check. Is the deed of servitude hidden in Third Sister's sleeve? Master Lin signaled, and the old steward immediately stepped forward, tugging Third Mistress's sleeve. A fair, slender arm was revealed, along with several sheets of deeds of servitude. Third Mistress's eyes widened. Impossible. Autumn never gave me anything. The evidence is clear. Third Sister. Don't even try to argue. Master Lin also looked at Third Mistress with suspicion. I watched Third Mistress's proud face crumble in an instant. She wept, tears and snot streaming down. She knelt and crawled towards Master Lin, clutching his leg as if it were her last straw. "Master, believe me, I'm innocent." Master Lin ignored her, kicking Third Mistress in the chest. It was a kick to the heart. Third Mistress immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. Yet she still looked at Master Lin with hope. Daring to steal a deed of servitude? Cards! Take Third Mistress and this maid and beat them to death. Master Lin delivered his final verdict. Third Mistress spat blood again. No. She stared at Master Lin, then suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. "Master, I have served you for half my life, and in the end, you don't believe a single word I say. Ha ha!" Blood stained half of Third Mistress's face, and her crazed laughter made her look no different from a female demon. Thus, Third Mistress and Autumn were dragged out. Early guards, wielding thick, bow-sized staffs, rushed forward, striking the two small women on the ground repeatedly. Horrifying screams echoed throughout the ancestral hall. In no time, both were beaten to a pulp. "No, they'll die if this continues. They're in this situation because of me. Moreover, with such blatant false accusations, why does Master Lin only listen to Sixth Mistress's one-sided story? I must save them." Just as I was about to rush forward, Spring appeared from nowhere, grabbing my wrist tightly. The deed of servitude is Master Lin's weakness. Even if he kills unjustly, he won't spare anyone. Rushing in now will do no good, only invite death. But I didn't have time to think much. I yanked my hand free from Spring and ran. The image of Autumn's kindness to me these past few days, along with her decisive back in the study earlier, replaying in my mind. Spring had once said that if the current Autumn died, she would never wake up again. Autumn knew opening the door meant death, yet she was determined to take the blame for me. Whether she was the real Autumn or not, I had to save her. The tragic cries grew fainter. Third Mistress no longer even had the strength to struggle, only convulsing and spitting blood. Autumn's condition was slightly better. She could still cry out, but she was also covered in blood, her mind no longer clear. I took a deep breath, ran, and knelt before Master Lin. "Master, Third Mistress is innocent." I saw with my own eyes that sixth mistress secretly put the deed of servitude into third mistress's sleeve. My heart pounded, my words tumbling out rapidly, almost in one breath. But after I finished speaking, there was a long silence, and I heard no sound from Master Lin. I prostrated myself on the ground, only seeing a corner of Master Lin's brilliant yellow robe. A drop of cold sweat ran down my forehead. I dared not breathe heavily. A strange oppressive aura emanated from Master Lin, controlling me, filling the depths of my heart with immense fear. This feeling was like being stared at by a ferocious beast, fearing that in the next second I would be torn to pieces. There was only one thought in my mind: run. Strangely, when I was standing far away, I felt nothing. But why was I so terrified when I got close to Master Lin? "You are third mistress's maid. Of course you defend your mistress," sixth mistress shouted, but then turned to Master Lin with a gentle voice. "Master, don't listen to her slander me. I think this maid should also be beaten to death like her mistress." "Master, third mistress has stopped breathing," a guard outside reported. My fingers trembled, my nails digging deep into my palms, a drop of blood trickling down. "That's enough, Master. This maid is not wrong." Sixth mistress secretly put the deed of servitude on third mistress. First mistress, who had been holding her hands together, chanting Buddhist prayers, lowered her prayer beads and spoke. First mistress had a gentle and benevolent face, like a living bodhisattva, and was very kind to her servants. The malicious servants in the mansion often gossiped about the various mistresses in the inner courtyard. Second mistress, who was crazy and kept to herself. Third mistress, who was arrogant and fierce. Sixth mistress, who had a Buddha's face but a wolf's heart. All difficult people to deal with. Only first mistress was proper, respectful, behaved appropriately, served her husband, and managed household affairs excellently. Servants often praised first mistress, saying she was truly worthy of being a young lady from a prominent family, and her demeanor was the true model of a legitimate wife. First mistress held no low status in the mansion. Even Master Lin deferred to her by 3 parts, with her speaking up, at least Autumn, who was barely clinging to life, could be saved. "Guards! Release that maid outside immediately," First mistress commanded. Hearing this, I snapped my head up, repeatedly kowtowing to thank first mistress. First mistress smiled and nodded, her face full of compassion. This time, the one astonished and weeping was sixth mistress, but before she could open her mouth to plead with Master Lin, first mistress cut her off. Sixth mistress, blinded by jealousy, harmed her sisters, disgraced the family, violated the rules of women. Take her to the drowning pool. Sixth mistress stared at first mistress in disbelief, as if wanting to say something, but the guards covered her mouth and dragged her away. I looked at her, resentful eyes, my mind full of thoughts. If first mistress had seen with her own eyes sixth mistress slipping the deed of servitude to third mistress, why didn't she speak up sooner, waiting until third mistress had breathed her last? Moreover, the deed of servitude was always in Master Lin's study. How could sixth mistress have stolen it to frame third mistress? You could freely enter and exit the study. Besides Master Lin, Only First Mistress could. Could it be that everything was? I dared not think too deeply, only secretly observing First Mistress a few times. She still held her prayer beads, still with that compassionate face. Third Mistress was beaten to death with a staff. Sixth Mistress was taken to the drowning pool. Autumn was half dead, barely clinging to life. Spring and I took her back and gave her some medicine. So many things happened tonight that I had nightmares all night. In my dream, the compassionate First Mistress, counting her prayer beads, smiled at me. But when I went behind her, I saw another face growing on the back of her head. A pale green face with poisonous fangs, fierce and malevolent, even more terrifying than a demon from hell. Its blood-red mouth grew wider and wider, revealing sharp, dense, sinister teeth. A second later, those sharp teeth bit through my neck. I jolted awake, sitting upright in bed, my hands unconsciously touching my neck. My fingertips clearly felt life, and I breathed a sigh of relief. It was just a dream. Third Mistress and Sixth Mistress have both awakened. The power of the Lin Mansion is stronger now, making it even harder for Summer to escape. What should I do? Is this instance truly inescapable? From outside the room came Spring's suppressed sobs, followed by Autumn's heavy sigh. Spring and Autumn were talking privately again. I perked up my ears, listening intently. Don't be so sad. After yesterday, we now know First Mistress's true face. And we also know the deed of servitude is actually with her. So, it's a blessing in disguise. This voice, besides Spring and Autumn, was a third person. Third Mistress. Immediately after, another voice rang out. Yes, next we should figure out how to get the deed of servitude from First Mistress. This fourth voice was Sixth Mistress, but these two had clearly died yesterday. I saw it with my own eyes. Moreover, the two had never gotten along, so how could they be sitting together talking? Unless they were no longer themselves. Spring had mentioned awakening, and awakening meant coming back to life from the dead. After coming back to life, they were no longer their old selves. In the Lin Mansion, those who died would return to life the next day, but the ones who returned were not the same people. So, that's how it was. Third Mistress. First Mistress called Summer to attend to her. As soon as I got out of bed, I heard someone outside calling my name. I opened the door and saw several people standing in the courtyard. Spring, Autumn, and Third Mistress. Sixth Mistress sat gathered around a square table under a tree. Her complexion rosy, her breathing normal, showing no signs of having been beaten or taken to the drowning pool. Normally, Third Mistress considered it lucky not to beat a maid, and certainly wouldn't let servants sit at the same level. And on the other side, the person speaking was Madame Tao, First Mistress's attendant. She seemed entirely unsurprised by this scene. Yet last night, when Autumn and Third Mistress were beaten, she was clearly present. She was even the one who escorted Sixth Mistress to the drowning pool, but she didn't remember the deaths of Third Mistress and Sixth Mistress. But Third Mistress and Sixth Mistress themselves, and even Spring and Autumn, remembered their deaths from last night. It seemed the Lin Mansion had two types of people: normal people and those who had died and come back to life. Normal people didn't remember the deaths of the awakened ones, nor did they detect the oddities about them. The awakened ones knew of their own deaths, but the ones who returned were no longer their old selves. Their words and gestures were peculiar, and what they said was hard to understand. But it seemed they weren't like vengeful spirits or harmful monsters. Their goal seemed to be only to find the deed of servitude, help me escape the Lin Mansion, and ultimately close the Lin Mansion. Why? Why me? Why did I remember the deaths of the awakened ones? Why could I smell the strong stench of decay on them? Why did they want me to escape the Lin Mansion, believing that was the only way to close it? What exactly was the Lin Mansion? Everything here was too bizarre. Seeing me appear, Madame Tao directly told me, "Summer, from today on, you will be a maid in First Mistress's courtyard." I suddenly clenched my palm, my heart tightening. The terrifying image of First Mistress from last night's nightmare was still vivid in my mind. Summer is foolish and clumsy. She might offend First Mistress. Perhaps it's better to keep her here. I will strictly teach her. Third Mistress and Sixth Mistress exchanged glances, then quickly stood up and said, "First Mistress is inherently kind and tolerant." She instructed that this matter should still consider Summer's wishes. Madame Tao changed her tone. Third Mistress sighed with relief, casting a glance at me, her voice extremely gentle. "Summer, do you want to stay here or go to First Mistress's side?" In an instant, all eyes turned to me. Spring stared at me, her gaze full of reluctance. Autumn frowned, her eyes filled with worry and tension. Sixth Mistress smiled, her eyes also signaling me to stay. Everyone hoped I would stay, but my nails dug deeper and deeper into my palm. The sharp pain strained my nerves. A moment later, I opened my mouth. I begged to go to First Mistress's side. Everyone's expressions changed. Worry, doubt, incomprehension, fear, impatience. All kinds of emotions appeared on their faces in succession. I bowed my head, not daring to look them in the eye. As I hesitated in silence, Madame Tao subtly mouthed a few words, soundlessly forming deed of servitude. First Mistress knew I was looking for the deed of servitude. Amidst everyone's anxious and reluctant gazes, I followed Madame Tao. Arriving at First Mistress's courtyard, she was performing Buddhist rites. The room had no open windows and no lit candles. The light was dim, with only the flickering red glow of incense lamps. As soon as I entered, the strong smell of incense ash rushed into my nostrils, making me want to sneeze. I suppressed the discomfort and itchiness, respectfully bowing to First Mistress, who was shrouded in smoke. She had her back to me, constantly mumbling, seemingly chanting sutras, not noticing me kneeling on the ground. A very long time passed. So long that my nose couldn't bear the strong incense smell, and even my legs had gone numb. First Mistress finally released the wooden fish drum. Handy, she signaled Madame Tao to light a candle. In the dim candlelight, I clearly saw First Mistress's face. Kind, gentle, calm, and tender. Not at all like the image from last night's nightmare. She doesn't look like a bad person at all. Could my suspicions last night just be my own malice? But First Mistress's next words quickly proved my suspicions. The person before me, though appearing compassionate, was absolutely not benevolent. I walked quietly on the path back to Third Mistress's courtyard, First Mistress's words constantly echoing in my head. She said that since she married into the Lin Mansion, a total of 8 women and 5 children had appeared in the inner courtyard. I was a little perplexed. Currently, there were clearly only 4 mistresses in the Lin Mansion's inner courtyard, and not a single child. What did First Mistress's words mean? Suddenly, a terrifying thought struck me. Cold sweat immediately ran down my forehead, and my entire body began to tremble. First Mistress said she had never had a child of her own, and her greatest wish in life was to have one, but she could no longer conceive. She asked me if I could bear children. A piercing scream echoed in my ear. I turned my head and saw a frantic woman kneeling by the pond, constantly fumbling in the water. Her appearance was truly pathetic, as if she had lost something very important. I stepped forward to inquire, only then realizing that the disheveled woman before me was Second Mistress of the mansion. Second Mistress was the legitimate daughter of a prominent family, her maternal family status much higher than First Mistress's. Even Master Lin marrying Second Mistress was considered marrying up. Also, because of Second Mistress's maternal family background, even though she entered the mansion after First Mistress, she could still be on equal footing. However, though Second Mistress held the power to manage the household, she didn't care about the mansion's affairs, big or small. She stayed cooped up all day, not coming out, not meeting anyone. Even Master Lin's visits were refused. My jade pendant. My jade pendant. Her expression was frantic, her sleeves already soaked in pond water. Yet her hands continued to delve into the pond, searching for something. Second Mistress was a breathtaking beauty. Even in the simplest clothes, without makeup, and with messy hair, her radiance could not be concealed. I glanced at the placid surface of the pond, and the figure floated in the middle. It was the body of Sixth Mistress, drowned last night. After Sixth Mistress died and came back to life, everyone forgot her death and didn't see her body floating in the pond. Sixth Mistress's body just floated on the water, just like autumn buried in the back mountain. Spring fell into the well. Third Mistress was beaten to death and thrown into the garden, and no one cared. Seeing that she couldn't find anything, no matter how much she searched, Second Mistress sat down on the ground, her spirit seemingly drained. A beauty in tears naturally stirred pity in people's hearts. I sighed and jumped into the pond to retrieve the jade pendant for Second Mistress. It was a round white jade pendant, finely engraved with the 2 small characters Wuna. I remembered that this was probably Second Mistress's maiden name. I handed the jade pendant to Second Mistress. "Thank you," she said, trembling as she took it, carefully cradling the jade pendant to her chest. Her face was so happy it was almost crying, her eyes full of affection, as if she were holding not a jade pendant, but the passionate palm of her lover. Returning to Third Mistress's courtyard, the 4 figures still sat around the square table under the tree, their expressions grave. The pungent stench once again filled my nostrils. Seeing me return, Spring joyfully took my hand. "Summer, I knew it. You'd definitely come back." I shook my head. "No, I just came back to pack my things." Spring froze, the corners of her mouth slowly drooping, like a pitiful puppy. Third Mistress and Autumn exchanged glances. Then Third Mistress spoke. Summer. Actually, we are not the real spring and autumn, nor are we the real third mistress and sixth mistress. My heart skipped a beat. Were they going to confess to me? Third mistress's next words completely shattered my perception. In that moment, 17 years of my life collapsed. She said this place was not the real Lin Mansion, but a death game. All of us were players in this game, playing different women in the Lin Mansion's inner courtyard. Our only mission was to escape the Lin Mansion. You are not Summer. You are just a player playing Summer. I didn't really understand the meaning of game, but I understood the last sentence. How could I not be me? I clearly had memories of my past. My parents were farmers from a nearby village who sold me into the Lin Mansion because they had no food to eat. Since arriving here, I had served third mistress, and it had been 6 or 7 years now. I instinctively rebutted, but third mistress's next words made my whole body tremble. Then do you remember what your parents looked like? I was stunned in place. What did my parents look like? I constantly tried to recall, constantly thought. But my mind was blank. Yes, it was a blank space. Not even a faint shadow. This wasn't normal. If I said I was too young when I was sold here to clearly remember their faces, then why was there no faint image in my mind at all? I was completely silent. Your so-called memories are just a character installed in the game. Autumn spoke up. All of us are players in this Lin Mansion instance, but no one has ever completed the game. Among those currently awakened, third mistress entered the earliest, followed by autumn, sixth mistress, and spring. We've been trapped in this game for so long that we've forgotten our own names. Wait a minute, I interrupted Autumn, that old suspicion reappearing in my mind. I continued to ask, what is awakening? You can understand it as dying and coming back to life. This time, it was sixth mistress who spoke. The longer we stay in the game, the more we are assimilated by it, meaning we identify ourselves as the characters in the game setting. When assimilated and then dead, we wake up again, remembering that we are players and the Lin Mansion is just an instance of the game. If so, why haven't you awakened me? I asked, confused. Sixth mistress shook her head. You're different from us. You're the newest player. First-time players have their memories locked. So of course, you don't remember. When the number of people trapped in the game reaches a certain amount, the game will reset. At that time, everyone trapped in the game will die. You are our last hope. If you die or fail to escape the Lin Mansion, this game will restart. Only if you successfully retrieve the deed of servitude will this Lin Mansion game be completely closed. I clutched my heart, which was beating faster and faster, trying to digest this lengthy explanation. All the irrational and bizarre things now had an explanation. So, you mustn't go to First Mistress's side. First Mistress has a kind face, but a cruel heart. The deaths of third mistress and sixth mistress last night were all her scheme. Spring pulled my hand, admonishing me. It's too late, I shook my head. First Mistress promised me that if I help her bear a child, she will return the deed of servitude to me. Everyone was startled. Autumn frowned and asked, what if you don't help her? I gave a bitter smile. I have no choice at all. But once you become intimate with Master Lin, you will also be assimilated by the Lin Mansion. Spring cried out in alarm. Autumn and the two mistresses also frowned, their faces grim. An invisible pressure enveloped us, making it difficult to breathe. Whether I agreed or not, I would be hard-pressed to escape this calamity. What could I do? The sunlight in the courtyard shifted from east to west, soon swallowed by endless darkness. My heart pounded. I had never realized how quickly dusk fell in the Lin Mansion. Night had fallen, but we still hadn't figured out how to deal with it. The faces of everyone before me were dejected. Just as Spring went to light the lanterns, Madame Tao arrived with a servant. Disregarding the commands of Third Mistress and Sixth Mistress, she ordered the servant to drag me away. I was led to an attached room in First Mistress's courtyard. Inside, several servants were already waiting before a bronze mirror, one even holding a set of red clothes. The candlelight shone dazzlingly red. Madame Tao told the servants to put makeup on me. I tried to resist. Madame Tao ordered the servants to restrain me, advising, "Summer, the madam is a benevolent person. As long as you do this well, the madam will naturally not treat you poorly. At that time, if you wish to leave, the madam will return your deed of servitude. If you wish to stay, the madam will make you seventh mistress. Whichever you choose, you won't lose out. Think it over carefully." I laughed coldly in my heart. No matter what I chose, did I even have a choice? After the makeup was done, Madame Tao tore my clothes, revealing a patch of fair skin, then bound my hands and feet and threw me onto the bed. "Master Lin will arrive soon. You